Every year, Planting Roots has a different theme based on a passage in the Bible. And so the theme for 2021 was going to be Rise Up, based out of the Nehemiah 2:18. And so we started going through the book of Nehemiah. I started digging in the book of Nehemiah. And it's an incredible story that is so extremely relevant today. So Nehemiah lived about 500 BC. I don't have the exact date. And we would think, well, that's an old story. How can that be relevant today? But it's a story about rebuilding. It's a story about identity, and it's a story about community. So it was absolutely amazing to go through Nehemiah, and an honor to be able to do that.
It is an amazing book. It
Yes.
is one man whom God chose to use.
Yes.
And of course, he faced great difficulty. The people that he had, called to serve with him, but yet they continued to be consistent and persistent with respect to the task at hand. So what do you think are maybe some life lessons that women can learn from this man and what he accomplished?
The first lesson is that Nehemiah heard the call. He saw a need, and he knew that God chose him to fill that need. So the need was to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And I think what we can learn from Nehemiah is that if we see a need, it's more than likely that God wants to use you to fill that need. And that's the concept of awakening the leader in you. We're all leaders because we all have a part to play in that. So that is one of the major lessons in Nehemiah. The second lesson is Nehemiah was a man of prayer. Any difficulties, anything that was coming up in his life, he would go to prayer.
So when you take the themes of Nehemiah and you actually apply them specifically to military women, this, of course, being released by the Planting Roots organization that ministers to military women and military spouses who are women, female. So when you look at the specific application of these principles in the story of Nehemiah, how does this resonate or relate to those who are either serving in the military or who are military spouses?
Well, there's different themes that we cover in the study. One of them is opposition, and I think the military knows a lot about opposition. Another theme is the community, and that is something I believe that the military is really good at, is creating community, because we are separated from friends and family. We move all the time, and Nehemiah is a community builder. There is him rebuilding the wall, so there's a task at hand. There's a concept of being an exile, that you're far from home, and you lose an identity when you do that. So how do you rebuild that identity around people that are like-minded?
I wanted to explore that just a bit. As you were mentioning earlier, of course, you had the international component, having met you were from France, met your husband in Germany, you got married in France. Ultimately, you ended up in the United States, and your husband was stationed at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas, and you live in Kansas. Even to this day, you're a writer for Planting Roots. And so when you go from place to place, and I want you to comment just a bit, because I know we have a number of military members and their families that listen to Faith Radio, with Maxwell Gunter as well as Fort Rucker, and you have those that serve in the Guard and Reserve. You've got families that spend extended time in separation. And while there are ways to communicate with one another, thankfully, that's a good thing. Nevertheless, when you look at the challenges of deployment and frequent moving and travel and things like that, what have you found as far as the response to people not having the bearings? Of course, you've got the commonality and the purpose and the community in the military, but nevertheless, when you have frequent changes as far as geography, and describe the effect of that, and also how perhaps the lesson of Nehemiah can be applied.
Absolutely. It's a good question, because one of the questions that my kids hate the most is, where are you from?
Right. Everywhere.
Nowhere and everywhere. And that is a common thing in the military.